Joao Pedro has supposedly given a verbal agreement to sign a new contract at Chelsea, with Chelsea looking to secure the striker after a myriad of clubs were willing to put in big money for him. Pep Chavarria to Chelsea from Rayo Vallecano is supposedly still being negotiated. Once again, Chalobah is very close to becoming a Como player, and I just don't even know. I'm just going to wait until I see it at this point. Xabi Alonso speaks about Mudryk and gives us an update on Mike Penders and Robert Sanchez, and supposedly there's increased interest for Chelsea winger Pedro Neto. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. I did my match review earlier, my winners and losers, so go and check that one out if you want to see what I thought about today's game against Spurs, but there's a whole lot of news to get into, so let's go. Fabrizio Romano posted this: Joao Pedro will sign a new long-term contract at Chelsea in the upcoming days, verbal agreement done. All set for longer deal until June 2033 and salary increase after calls from 3 top clubs turned down by CFC. Untouchable as always said. I love this. Fabrizio Romano, I don't know if you've seen what's going on between him and Florian Plettenberg, but he is definitely putting his foot down on these things that he's said before, and when it's like, I've always said that, it's happening a little bit more. Go and check out the Florian Plettenberg stuff, man. It's actually pretty funny. But anyway, Joao Pedro, yeah, of all of the players in the Chelsea squad last season, easily the most deserving of a new contract, easily deserving of a pay bump, and very good news, because at the end of the day, Barcelona was sniffing around from the start of the window, and that's great because at the end of the day, clubs have been sniffing around in the window, and we just found out who some of those were. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Ge Globo, something. Barcelona and Arsenal indicated they are willing to exceed £85 million for Joao Pedro. Chelsea immediately closed the door, declaring Joao Pedro non-negotiable. Joao Pedro will sign in the coming days to remain until 2033 at Chelsea. So, interesting, because we knew about Barcelona. Barcelona, like Joao Pedro being untouchable, was like the first Chelsea-related story of the whole window. You know, and they've obviously been after Julian Alvarez as well from Atletico Madrid. Evidently, with them losing Robert Lewandowski, they are looking to increase their attacking options. And Joao Pedro represents a really interesting option to the Catalan club. But we said no. What I do find interesting about this is I didn't know about the Arsenal stuff. That was brand new. Can you imagine? Mate, if we'd have sold Joao Pedro to Arsenal, that would have been savage. That would have been... That would have been so brutal. 85 mil just doesn't even seem worth it. Like, you think about how this market's gone, how this window's gone. With the numbers that he got last season, Joao Pedro is minimum 100 mil. Like, when you're thinking about Elliot Anderson going for 116 mil, and Joao Pedro was literally 3rd, 4th top scorer in the Premier League last season. Like, look, it's a little bit of an insult, even just in the terms of the money. But ultimately, the excellent thing about this is not only did we shut the deal down, because at the end of the day, much like Enzo Fernandez, Joao Pedro is already on a relatively long contract, because we love handing out these 5, 6, 7-year contracts to players, and we did that when we signed him in the first place. But not only are we looking to initially bat away people that are coming in for him, we're also looking to reaffirm his commitment to the squad, which is what we've done in this new deal. So, for instance, you know, Enzo Fernandez hasn't managed to get a new deal for a while. He's still got 6 years left on his deal, and there's been loads of problems there. Moises Caicedo got one most recently. Reece James also got one. Cole Palmer had one. Nicholas Jackson got one after his first year. Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson both signed extended contract deals after their first year at Chelsea. So this is actually a precedent that's been set here. Every single year, I guess, depending on your performance, your money can be negotiated. And Joao Pedro 100% has deserved that. Like, he's arguably, at the moment, the best player in the squad. You know, it was unfortunate that he didn't manage to get anything away against Tottenham today, but it was only pre-season. You know, he did get a hat-trick in the Western Sydney Wanderers game, and I expect Joao Pedro to be a monster for Chelsea in this upcoming season. So, Pice also posted this via Fabrizio Romano. Joao Pedro gets a really important salary increase. Chelsea feel this sends a message that we can and will keep our best players. So, I do think this is quite important as well in the grand scheme of things. I remember throughout the season when things were going badly, lots of people, you know, the conversation was being had about the exodus, right? Why would Caicedo want to stay here? Why would Cole Palmer want to stay here? Why would all of these good players that we've got want to stay here? Obviously, Marco Correa's gone. Enzo Fernandez will be what it will be, got no idea there. So there was this worry, right, that it was like, why would people want to stay at Chelsea? I think it's incredible. Our most recent footballing achievements are finishing 10th and not getting European football, but getting Xabi Alonso in and making the changes that we've made have been enough not only to convince players like Morgan Rogers to join, but also to convince players like Joao Pedro to sign new deals. So I think it's a massive statement of intent going forward that everything feels really good in and around the club at the moment. Now, at the end of the day, it will all come down to results. You know, going forward, it will all come down to results. But I do just genuinely think it's incredible that we've managed to sign the players that we have and managed to tie down Joao Pedro to an extended contract, you know, which, like I said, affirms his commitment to the club and, you know, for, you would assume, the long term, literally with a few pre-season games and having Xabi Alonso signed. So it shows you the aura, the power, the magnetism that Xabi Alonso has as a manager, and the players are really excited to play for him. So, guys, Joao Pedro signing a new deal. Who's next on the list? I don't even know. I think that's kind of it, right? In terms of the core of the squad that we want to build on going forward, having signed new deals. Levi Colwill, maybe, I guess, I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like the core of our team is going to be here for a long time, and we're going to be able to build around that core with Xabi Alonso at the helm. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. And guys, I am really, really close to 5k subs now. I can't believe it. Summer's been wild. So if you haven't already subscribed, do us a favour, click that subscribe button, and let's get to 5k before the season starts. Right, so next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Pep Chavarria. And yes, there is still stuff to talk about, so let's have a look. Fabrizio Romano posted this exclusive. Chelsea improved their bid for Pep Chavarria as negotiations with Rayo Vallecano are moving forward. New proposal for the Spanish left-back wanted by Xabi Alonso. So the last bid was 21 mil. They want 40, 25. I mean, we haven't seen an amount yet. That's the thing. But we have improved the bid. We are trying to get this deal over the line. Xabi Alonso wants this player. And I guess when you look at our left-back situation, look, the other day we were linked to Lewis Hall. And Cy Phillips come out saying that Chelsea was obsessed with him. So I don't think Chelsea are that obsessed with Lewis Hall if we're putting in extra bids for Pep Chavarria. As much as I'd love to see Lewis Hall in the squad, don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter who joins for this season in particular, as long as we've got the spots filled with the kind of players that Xabi Alonso wants, right? I think you can see just from today, like even just from pre-season, like Anselmino came on at left back in the last game. We've got Landon Emanalo, but he's literally 17 years old, something like that, 18 years old. There's questions about Yoro Hato, who looks to be able to play that left-back, left-centre-back role, don't get me wrong. But then there's Valentin Barco, and, we don't really have any dedicated left-backs. Everyone is kind of someone that can play there and do a job, or an academy player. So it makes sense to me to get someone who, a little bit older, he's been around the game for a while, had a reasonably good season with Vallecano in Spain last season, and Xabi Alonso is obviously really keen to get this player over the line. So, okay, cool, we're going back in for another bid, but how much? No idea. So Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Fabrizio Romano. Negotiation is ongoing for Pep Chavarria. Chelsea are being careful till the end because the negotiation with Rayo has been more complicated than expected. The player is pushing to join Chelsea, who are optimistic after new bid sent. So I guess we'll find out how much the bid's for soon. But what may have been putting this over the line, I guess, is the fact that the player has been pushing as well. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because, how much power does a player have to push, really? We can have conversations about the likes of a Vinny Jr. or an Mbappe or an Enzo Fernandez or someone like that. Do you know what I mean? And, how much power do they really have? But how much power does a Pep Chavarria have when his release clause is so clearly, massively overinflated to the point where we were invited for a 12 mil bid? This is the thing, is even if you, as a fan, think that Pep Chavarria is worth 40 mil, the truth of the fact is, we were invited into the negotiation thinking that a bid in and around 12 million could get the deal done. That's absolutely not what's happened. So look, I could see it going to 25, maybe. I don't even know anymore. It's just been a really, really strange deal. But like I say, the two really positive things, I guess, that might help push this deal over the line is the fact that Pep Chavarria himself is very keen to make the move, and Xabi Alonso really wants the player. Right, so next up, we're going to talk about Trevoh Chalobah again. I guess we're always talking about Trevoh Chalobah, right? Pice posted this via Fabrizio Romano. Chalobah could become new Como player as soon as this weekend or early next week. Time depends on Chelsea as they are on the other side of the world, but it is moving fast. So, the most recent bid I've seen is 25 mil plus add-ons, whereas the last bid was like 30 million euros with including the add-ons, which would have added up to about 25 mil. So we might be getting closer to the 30 mil. I think I saw another tweet about this as well, saying that the issue with the Trevoh Chalobah thing is there's not loads of clubs knocking our door down for him. And I spoke a little bit about this last night on the Blue Lounge. The issue is, with Trevoh Chalobah in particular, it's self-inflicted. This price is self-inflicted because we've been trying to get rid of him for the last 2 or 3 seasons now. And every single team that wants a centre-back from Chelsea, we might run into similar issues with Benoit Badiashile, Axel Disasi. Every single team can see when they come in for one of our centre-backs, you've got loads of centre-backs. You've got 10 centre-backs on your books. You have to get rid of some. So that is a massive leverage, basically, because it's all fine and good us being like, we're not selling Joao Pedro, do you know what I mean? And obviously, you know, we can kind of put our foot down there, but we're not going to do that with a Trevoh Chalobah, and we're probably not going to do that with a Badiashile or a Disasi, because imagine it's like, we're not selling Trevoh Chalobah, we're not selling Badiashile, right? Okay, cool, we'll keep them on our books. They all end up on the bench, or we create a massive new bomb squad, which I desperately don't want to see again, full of centre-backs. So this centre-back situation is largely of Chelsea's own making. We're probably not going, like, and the thing is, I say that because Trevoh Chalobah, from the player profile, is worth a lot more based on all the other, you know, all the other prices of centre-backs that have been going around. He's worth more than 25 to 30 mil. I think it's fair to say. But you know, like I say, the issue is, A, we've got loads of centre-backs and the world and his dog knows that we need to get rid of them all. And the other issue is, when you're buying a player, it's as much, the only thing that really matters is the profit. Do you know what I mean? It's like the big number is the profit that will be made. Because if Trevoh Chalobah, if we'd have spent 50 mil on Trevoh Chalobah and he had 20 mil left on his contract and we get 25, 30 mil for him, we only make 10 mil profit. But because he's an academy player, we'll still make 25 to 30, which is probably in and around what you get for selling Disasi and Badiashile combined, if not more. So the problem, like, you know, the other negotiating element from there, from other people, is being like, well, you're still going to get all this money on the books for that player. So for you, he's actually worth that. And, you know, all of these things combined are driving his price down at the end of the day. Como are being relatively smart. I don't even think that, like, you know, we're looking at the Rayo Vallecano thing and it's a bit different, I think, because they are massively, like, overvaluing the player based on his release clause. With Trevoh Chalobah, we're trying to say, we want 30, 35 mil for him. And all the other clubs are being like, well, mate, you've got all these other centre-backs on your books, so we know you've got to get rid of them. So come on, your need to sell them is as great as our need to buy them. And the other thing as well, we can't not sell Trevoh Chalobah for the service that he's done to the club, just on a human level. Do you know what I mean? Just on a human level. Like, Trevoh Chalobah has been such an excellent servant, albeit not necessarily the level of centre-back that we want. Like, I think the general consensus about Chalobah is we would all be happy to have him as a rotation option, right? You know, to be able to bring on and rotate in games. Yeah, cool. But Trevoh Chalobah's not going to want that. He had 18 months in the Chelsea first team. He had 6 months in the Crystal Palace first team before that. He's been a Premier League starter for the last 2 seasons. And he's good enough to go and play with Como in the Champions League in Serie A. He's just not what we're looking for. So I think that's a big thing as well. Like, I expect this deal, I mean, I keep saying that, do you know what I mean? So I don't really know. Like, this deal could go on deadline day, or it could not happen at all. It's just been moving backwards and forwards for so long now. You know, it was Como, then it was Inter, then there was talks about Palace, then it was back to Inter, then now it's Como again, and then it got rejected, and now we're still there having this conversation. But I just hope for Trevoh Chalobah's sake that it's near the end of it, because he's just a legend, man. Right, next up, we're going to talk about some stuff that Xabi Alonso said about incoming and existing players in the squad. First, he was asked about Mudryk. Pice posted this. Alonso says he watched Mudryk at Shakhtar and he was very good in 1v1s. He says it will take time, but doesn't rule him out staying with the squad. So I think, you know, you can't really say anything else at the end of the day. Like, if you want to see my reaction on Mudryk, again, I posted that video yesterday. It's not super long, so go and check it out if you want to see what I think about the situation. But in a nutshell, like, I'm really happy for Mudryk as an individual person. Again, like Chalobah, on the human level, like, being banned for not knowing that you'd taken too much of this thing because people have been giving you these supplements or whatever, like, awful, horrible. So amazing for him to be able to get back into football and have another opportunity. As far as him joining the Chelsea team goes, I'm not particularly enamoured by it. But as far as what Xabi Alonso's got to say here, he is good in 1v1s, I guess, for the most part. But you know, he also says it will take time. And that's the thing, is Mudryk has been training for the last 2 years, but that's so far beyond not being match fit, isn't it, at the end of the day? So look, I guess we'll see what happens with Mudryk soon, because he's going to join up with the team in Hong Kong on the Asian leg of the tour. So we'll, at the very least, we'll see him in and around training. We might see him feature in some games, and we'll see if he's rusty or whether he's actually kept himself fit to a point that he's actually just raring to go. It'd be really interesting to see. But like I say, personally, I don't necessarily foresee a place for him in the squad, bearing in mind that we've just spent 117 million on Morgan Rogers, who's probably going to play a lot on that left-hand side. And we've also got Jamie Gittins, who, look, say what you want about Gittins last season, but he's got 4 in 4 in pre-season so far. And it is only pre-season, don't get me wrong, 2 behind closed-door games against very low-level opposition. And, you know, Western Sydney Wanderers aren't exactly Real Madrid. You know, he got the assist against Tottenham today for Esteval's goal. And look, at the moment, as of right now, looking at Jamie Gittins in the games that I'm actually seeing him play, I would say, based on the fact that Mudryk hasn't played football for 2 years, it's going to be difficult to dislodge him. Not impossible, as Xabi Alonso is also echoing here by saying he doesn't ruling out staying with the squad. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Mudryk development, but I kind of expect him to go out on loan. Right, also a little bit about goalkeepers. Pice said Alonso says Penders will join next week. Sanchez has a small injury. So I got to the game literally like 5 minutes before it started and I missed all of the news. I saw Sharman Lowe in goal and I messaged Jay and I was just like, ooh, Sharman Lowe in goal, is this significant? And then he was like, nah, man, Robert Sanchez had literally pulled up with injury just before the game. So it's like, oh, okay, that's unfortunate. Hope it says small injury, so we probably still will be expecting him to play, but obviously it's never good for your goalkeepers to get injured, especially the situation we're in now. But depending on how long that injury goes on for, maybe that means that Penders is going to get his opportunity a little bit sooner than we thought. Unless, you know, the next game is against Juventus next Wednesday. So if Sanchez is fine by then, I guess Sanchez will probably get the start. But if he isn't fine by then, I would have thought Penders would be more likely to start than Slanina or Teddy Sharman Lowe. Either way, I'm looking forward to seeing big old Mike Penders in the sticks finally. And like I said, I've kind of been pushing this for a while. I think he's going to win that battle with Robert Sanchez pretty quickly. One thing we've seen from Robert Sanchez, even in pre-season, his distribution still isn't very good. And I imagine that's probably something that Xabi Alonso is going to want to use, not to the same level that Maresca and Liam Rosinia did, but ultimately with a possession-based team, your goalkeeper playing out from the back is still going to be a thing, right? So yeah, I'll be interested to see Penders coming in and if he can instantly dislodge Sanchez. And I have a feeling if he can't, he might be sent back out on loan and we may well dip in the market for another goalkeeper. And last but not least, we've got a little word about Pedro Neto. Chelsea Hub posted this via Ben Jacobs. Chelsea could soon have a big decision to make over Pedro Neto. Interest is building around the Portuguese winger, with Al Hilal and Liverpool among the clubs linked with a move. How much would it take for Chelsea to seriously consider selling? So the interesting thing, the Liverpool angle, it doesn't feel like they'd get Barcola and Neto, does it? I mean, that's just because the thing is, like, based on the winger prices that we're seeing, like I kind of, you know, used the bottom level of Anthony Gordon to Barcelona for 70 million with 8 GA in the Premier League. Pedro Neto had a much better season than that, and so 60, 70, 80, something in and around there. Like 60 is just a bit more than what we paid for him, so that would represent a profit. But if we are going to be like savage about it and be like, we're not selling him unless you give us good money for him, especially there's the rival tax as well, isn't there? So if we sell him to Liverpool, they probably pay 70, 80 mil for him just because it's Liverpool. But so do they do that and spend what, like more on Bradley Barcola than they spent on Alexander Isak? Clubs have got money at the moment. Like, who knows how finances work in the Premier League? It's absolutely crazy, but lots of clubs are spending really big. It looks like Arsenal are getting pretty close to an 85 to 90 million plus deal for Bruno Guimaraes. We've obviously spent 115 mil on Morgan Rogers, combined with the 50 that we spent on Palestra. City have spent 116 on Elliot Anderson. They're looking to spend 100 on Bawadi. Do you know what I mean? The money is being thrown around all over the gaff. It's crazy. So, based on that, I could see if Liverpool are really interested in the player. And I do think he'd play well for Iraola as well. I think he suits that style of football probably a little bit more than he suits what we're going to be doing. Al Hilal, that would probably definitely be 80 mil, wouldn't it? Just because it's Al Hilal. At the end of the day, if Crescencio Somerville goes to Al Hilal for 80 mil, then Pedro Neto goes for 80 mil, doesn't he, at the very least? So this is the question, and I kind of want to put it out there to you guys as well, like, to ask about Pedro Neto in general. How much do you think Pedro Neto is worth in today's market, realistically? Like, you know, because for me, in my head, he's a 50 million player, but when you take into account all of the madness that's been going on around us, I don't think it's crazy to call him a 70 million pound player. You know, what is the price? If we sell him to Al Hilal, if we sell him to Liverpool, it just feels like 80 mil, the rival tax for Liverpool, and on top of the crazy market. And for Al Hilal, obviously, it's a Saudi Arabian club, and they've just spent 80 mil on Crescencio Somerville, and you'd have to argue that Pedro Neto for me, better player. At the moment, at least more experienced. And they love Portuguese players over in Saudi Arabia as well. They're picking them up all the time. So, yeah, like, which club do you think would be more likely to come in for Pedro Neto? Do you think there's anyone else that might have some interest? And how much do you think he's worth in today's crazy market? Let me know what you think in the comments. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about today. Joao Pedro is going to sign a new deal. Yes, the core is growing. It's getting stronger. Absolutely love that. The Pep Chavarria deal, still going on. Still talking about it. In my head, I'm just thinking 25 mil, I guess. But what do you think is, like, some of you guys in my comments before have said just pay whatever they want. So some of you are genuinely up for just throwing the 42 mil. Personally, I just think that seems crazy. But let me know in the comments how much you think Pep Chavarria is worth and if it's a deal we should pursue. Chalobah to Como, maybe, potentially, possibly, who knows? At this point, I just don't think we're going to get the 30 to 34. Well, we'll get 30 mil maybe with add-ons, but I don't think we're going to get the 35 mil we want for Trevoh Chalobah. And at this point, because of his service to the club and the fact that no one else seems to really be in for him, I think we should just sell him. Alonso says that he's watched Mudryk at Shakhtar and admires his one-on-ones, but it's going to take some time, but he seems open to the idea of giving him a shot in the squad. How likely do you think it is that Mudryk gets a chance at Chelsea again? Penders is joining up with the squad next week, and do you expect to see him come straight into the team, or do you think Sanchez will win that battle? And Pedro Neto supposedly is still looking to be on his way out. How much is he going to cost? Nice one, guys. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, because I am so close to that 5,000 goal. I can taste it. Nice one. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked weekend, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.